Welcome to the show. Today, we're tackling a common frustration for Salesforce Marketing Cloud users.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
pesky SSJS timeout errors that can bring your automation to a screeching halt.
It's like hitting a brick wall just when your automation is about to take off.
Exactly. You've got this brilliant automated sequence set up, and bam, timeout.
Right.
We've got a fascinating blog post by MarTech consultant Marcel Simonis that highlights this problem.
Okay.
Plus a super detailed YouTube script outline with strategies to prevent these timeout tragedies.
Let's dive into that blog post.
Okay.
It's a real-world example of how even seemingly simple tasks can hit a snag.
Right. Marcel was trying to retrieve a list of data extensions. Sounds straightforward enough.
Yeah?
But then timeout.
Huh.
The interesting thing is he had done similar retrieves before without any issues.
This is a perfect example of how timeouts can be tricky.
Right.
They often pop up unexpectedly, even when you think you've followed all the rules.
So what was the issue?
Well,
Why the sudden timeout?
the blog post author realized he was missing a key piece of the puzzle: pagination. You see, when you're dealing with a large number of data extensions, trying to retrieve them all at once can overload the system and lead to a timeout.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's like,
It's like trying to download a massive file all at once sometimes. You need to break it down into smaller chunks.
exactly, and that's where pagination comes in.
Okay.
It allows you to retrieve the data in manageable batches, preventing those server meltdowns.
So how did Marcel solve this? Did he have to rewrite his entire script?
He came up with a clever workaround,
Okay.
storing the last request ID in a data extension.
Interesting.
This basically acted as a bookmark, allowing his script to pick up where it left off after each timeout.
That's pretty ingenious. But it sounds like a bit of a Band-Aid solution, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if the data set is massive? Is he stuck manually restarting the script every time it times out?
You're hitting on a crucial point.
Okay.
While Marcel's workaround is clever, it highlights a fundamental truth about SSJS timeouts. Okay. They often point to deeper issues with the code or server environment.
So it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
Right.
It might help temporarily,
Yeah,
but you need to address the underlying issue.
that's a great way to put it. Timeouts are usually a symptom of a larger problem. Luckily, our YouTube outline dives into those broader timeout causes and solutions.
So if timeouts are the symptom, what are some of those underlying health issues our SSJS code might be facing?
One major culprit is inefficient code. Think of it like this. If you ask your computer to process a huge task all at once, it might get overwhelmed and freeze up. The same thing can happen with SSJS.
So how do we make our SSJS kind of more computer-friendly?
The YouTube outline emphasizes the importance of writing clean, optimized code. This means avoiding unnecessary loops, using built-in functions whenever possible, and generally making your code as streamlined as possible.
It's like choosing the most efficient route on your GPS instead of taking the scenic route that's full of twists and turns.
Precisely. And just like with a scenic route, those twists and turns in your code can really eat up time and resources.
Okay, so efficient code is key. What else should we be mindful of?
Another common culprit is large datasets. We touched on this with Marcel's data expansion dilemma.
Right, trying to eat the whole cake in one bite.
Exactly. And while Marcel's workaround addressed his specific situation, the YouTube outline suggests a more proactive approach: pagination or batching.
So instead of retrieving all the data at once, we break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Exactly. This not only reduces the strain on the server, but also makes your script more resilient to timeouts.
Got it. So we've covered inefficient code and large data sets. What else can trip us up?
External API calls are another common culprit. Imagine you're ordering multiple dishes at a restaurant. With synchronous requests, you'd have to wait for each dish to arrive before the next one is even prepared.
That would take forever. I'm getting hangry just thinking about it.
Right. That's why asynchronous requests are a game changer. It's like all the dishes being prepared simultaneously and arriving at your table as they're ready.
So instead of our script getting stuck waiting for each external call to finish it, can move on to other tasks while it waits.
Precisely. This keeps things moving smoothly and prevents those frustrating timeout delays.
This is all incredibly helpful. But sometimes it feels like no matter how much we optimize our code or handle data, those timeouts still sneak in. Could it be the server itself?
That's a great point. Sometimes the issue isn't the code itself, but the environment it's running in. The YouTube outline suggests a couple of things here.
Okay, like what?
First, consider your solver resources. If you're constantly maxing out your computer's memory, upgrading to more RAM can lead to smoother performance. The same applies to your server.
So if we're consistently pushing our server to its limits, A little upgrade could go a long way.
Absolutely. But it's not always about throwing more hardware at the problem. The YouTube outline also mentions the importance of server configurations.
So we can fine-tune the settings to get the most out of our server.
Exactly. Think of it like tuning a car engine. You're not necessarily replacing the entire engine, but you're optimizing its settings for peak performance. This might involve adjusting timeout limits, caching settings, or thread pool sizes.
So it's like giving our server a performance tune-up instead of buying a whole new car.
Precisely. These configurations can have a significant impact on how efficiently your server handles SSJS scripts.
Okay, so we've tackled code optimization, data handling, and even looked at our server setup. Is there anything else we can do to become SSJS timeout detectives? Catch those issues before they become major headaches,
That's where monitoring tools come in.
like having a backstage pass to our SSJS performance.
Exactly. These tools, like New Relic or even your built-in server logs, provide valuable data on script execution times resource usage and any errors that might be occurring.
It's like having a health tracker for our SSJS. We can see what's going on, when it's happening, and hopefully pinpoint why.
Exactly. With this data, you can identify bottlenecks, areas for improvement, and potentially address issues before they turn into major problems.
So we've gone from a clever but specific workaround in our blog post to a holistic view of SSJS timeout prevention. That feels like a real shift in perspective.
It is. Remember, Marcel's workaround, while clever, was focused on treating the symptom, the time out, rather than the underlying cause.
Right. It's like taking painkillers for a headache that's actually caused by eye strain. You're masking the pain, but you're not addressing the root cause.
Exactly. By understanding those broader timeout causes, code efficiency, data handling, API calls, and server limitations, you can implement solutions that are more robust and prevent problems from recurring.
It's about building a strong foundation for your SSJS, not just putting out fires.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway you want our listener to walk away with?
Remember, timeouts are often a symptom of deeper issues. Don't just try to fix the timeout itself. Dig deeper to understand the root cause. By embracing code optimization, efficient data handling, smart API strategies, and having a good handle on your server environment, you can create SSJS scripts that are not only fast and efficient, but also incredibly resilient.
The Zillion SSJS. I love that. And for our listeners, if you are wrestling with timeout troubles, remember this episode. You've got a whole toolkit of solutions now.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and never hesitate to reach out to the amazing Salesforce community for support.
That's a wrap on another episode. Until next time, happy automating.